There is a relationship in your life that feels like home, but it's a home built on fault lines. You know the feeling, the quiet tension before the storm, the way you brace yourself without even realizing it. You tell yourself it's love, it's loyalty, it's just how things are. But deep down, in a place you rarely visit, there is a different truth. It's the truth that this relationship isn't just difficult, it's keeping you trapped. It's replaying an old script written long before you ever met this person. A script you didn't write, but that you've been performing your entire life. Today, we are going to look at 7 of these toxic relationships. Not the obvious ones, but the subtle, quiet ones that weave themselves into the fabric of your daily life and tie your unconscious mind in knots. We will uncover why you are drawn to them, why you stay, and how, without even knowing it. You are repeating a story of pain that was never yours to carry. This is about the invisible chains and the key you've been holding all along. The first relationship is the one where you are the constant giver. You pour yourself out like water into sand, always available, always listening, always fixing. You anticipate their needs before they even speak them. You cancel your own plans, you silence your own desires, you make yourself smaller so they can feel bigger. And you tell yourself, this is what love does, this is what it means to care. But there is a quiet resentment that grows in the shadows of this giving. It's not a loud anger, but a dull ache, a feeling of being used up, of being an empty container. You wait for them to notice, to reciprocate, to finally see how much you are sacrificing. But that moment never comes, and the cycle continues. You give more, hoping that this time it will be enough to earn the love you so desperately need. This pattern feels familiar, doesn't it? It feels like home because it is a perfect recreation of a dynamic you learned as a child. Perhaps you had a parent who was emotionally absent, and you learned that the only way to feel a flicker of their attention was to be exceptionally good, to be helpful, to never be a problem. Your love was conditional upon your usefulness. So now, as an adult, you believe your worth is tied to your capacity to serve. You are trying to heal an old wound by repeating it, by giving to this new person what you desperately wanted to give to that parent in the hope of a different outcome. But the outcome is always the same. You are left alone with your own emptiness, confirming the very fear that started it all, that you, just as you are not quite enough. The second relationship is the one built on a foundation of quiet competition. It's not the loud, obvious rivalry you see in movies. It's much subtler than that. It's the friend, the partner, or even the colleague whose successes feel like your failures. When they achieve something, a part of you shrinks. You offer congratulations with a smile, but inside, a cold voice whispers, "Why them and not you?" You find yourself measuring your life against theirs, your career, your relationships, your happiness. Their joy becomes a mirror that reflects your own perceived inadequacies. You tell yourself you're proud of them, and a part of you genuinely is, but another, deeper part is keeping score. This isn't about malice, it's about an old, familiar hunger for validation that was never truly fed. Think back. Perhaps you grew up in a home where affection or praise felt like a limited resource. There was only so much to go around. Maybe you had a sibling who was the golden child, or perhaps you felt you had to compete for a parent's fragmented attention. Love felt like a prize you had to win, not a gift you were given simply for existing. You learned that to be seen, you had to be the best, the brightest, the most accomplished. Your value became entangled with being better than someone else. So now, as an adult, every other person's victory feels like a personal defeat. It's not really about them. It's about that old, unconscious script that says you must be number one to be worthy of love. You are trapped in a race you never agreed to run, against opponents who don't even know they are racing, all to win a trophy that, deep down, you know will never fill the emptiness it was meant to. This constant, low-grade competition is a silent drain on your soul. It isolates you. It turns potential allies into rivals. It taints your genuine joys with the bitter aftertaste of comparison. You can't fully celebrate your own life because you're too busy auditing someone else's. The unconscious mind, in its desperate attempt to resolve that childhood lack, has created a world where you must constantly prove your worth. But the proof is always temporary. The relief from a personal achievement is fleeting, quickly replaced by the anxiety of the next potential loss. You are forever running on a treadmill, exhausted, wondering why you never actually get anywhere. The truth is, you were trying to win a battle that was over long ago. In a childhood home where the rules were set without your consent. The competition is an illusion, a ghost from your past that you keep trying to defeat in the present. Do you find yourself measuring your worth against the highlight reels of other people's lives? The third relationship is the one that lives in the silence. It's the partnership or friendship where things are never truly discussed, where the real issues are buried under a mountain of polite agreement and quiet compliance. On the surface, it looks peaceful. There are no loud arguments, no slammed doors. But the silence is not peaceful. It is heavy. It is filled with everything that is left unsaid. The disappointments, the hurts, the small betrayals that accumulate over years. You become an expert in reading the room, in sensing the shift in atmosphere, in knowing exactly what not to say to keep the false peace intact. You tell yourself this is maturity. This is choosing your battles. But in your quiet moments, you feel a profound loneliness, a sense that you are sharing your life with a stranger, or worse, with a ghost of what you thought this relationship could be. This pattern doesn't come from nowhere. It was learned in a home where certain truths were too dangerous to speak aloud. Perhaps you had a parent who was fragile, volatile, or simply absent, and you learned that expressing your own needs or feelings would cause a rupture. Your childhood was a masterclass in emotional restraint. Love meant keeping the peace at all costs, even if the cost was your own voice. Your feelings were treated as an inconvenience, a disruption to the delicate balance of the household. So you learned to swallow your words. You learned that safety was found in silence, that love was conditional on your ability to not make waves. Now, as an adult, you recreate that same silent contract. You believe, deep in your unconscious, that to be loved is to be quiet. To be accepted is to never truly be known. You choose partners or friends who, like your parent, cannot handle your emotional truth. Or you become the one who cannot handle theirs, because the raw, messy reality of another person's feelings threatens to break the fragile illusion of control you've worked so hard to maintain. The relationship becomes a stage play where you are both actors following a script that demands silence over sincerity. You are together, but you are alone. You are communicating, but you are not connecting. The weight of this unspoken agreement is a slow and steady erosion of the self. You lose track of what you truly feel because you have spent so long pretending not to feel it. The resentment doesn't explode, it metastasizes. It shows up as a low-grade depression, a lack of interest in sex, a constant state of fatigue, or a simmering irritation over tiny, insignificant things. You might find yourself suddenly enraged by a dish left in the sink, but the rage isn't about the dish. It's about the 1,000 other things you have silently endured. The relationship becomes a cage of your own making, built from the old belief that your truth is too much, too messy, or too dangerous to be let out. You are protecting a connection that, in truth, has no real foundation, because it is not built on the reality of who you two are, but on the fearful silence of who you are pretending to be. When was the last time you said what you truly felt? The fourth relationship is the one where you are always waiting for the other person to change. You see a glimmer of their potential, a version of them that exists only in your mind, and you cling to it with a quiet, desperate hope. You tell yourself that if you are just patient enough, loving enough, understanding enough, they will finally become that person. You endure the broken promises, the half-hearted efforts, the constant letdowns. Because you believe your love can fix them. You are an architect, constantly redrawing the blueprints of their soul, convinced that the next revision will finally bring the masterpiece you know is hiding inside. But the person in front of you remains the same. And with each disappointment, a small part of you withers. You are in love with a ghost, a future that never arrives, and in the process, you are abandoning the person you are in the present. This isn't just about hope. It's about an old, familiar assignment you were given long ago. Perhaps you had a parent who was unreliable, emotionally distant, or struggling with their own demons. As a child, you learned that love meant managing another person's emotional state. Your sense of safety depended on their mood, their stability. You became a little psychologist, a tiny caretaker, trying to coax a smile, to calm a storm, to fix what was broken in them. You learned that if you could just be good enough, smart enough, helpful enough, you could finally earn the consistent, reliable love you craved. But you couldn't. A child can never heal a parent. So that unfinished business, that desperate need to finally fix the unfixable, gets carried into your adult relationships. You are not seeing your partner or friend for who they are. You are seeing them as a canvas onto which you are projecting an old, unresolved story. You are trying to finally get it right, to win the love you were denied as a child by succeeding where you once failed. The cost of this waiting is a quiet annihilation of the self. You put your life on hold. Your dreams, your needs, your daily happiness become secondary to the grand project of their transformation. You stop listening to your own intuition, which is quietly telling you the truth, because that truth would mean the death of your hope. You become a stranger to yourself, so focused on curating someone else's potential that you lose sight of your own reality. The relationship becomes a lonely vigil, a one-sided effort where you are pouring all your energy into a bottomless well. The resentment grows not as anger toward them, but as a deep, profound disappointment in yourself for staying, for hoping, for believing in a fantasy at the expense of your own life. This pattern is a defense mechanism, a way for your unconscious to avoid the real grief. The grief of accepting that your parent could not give you what you needed. The grief of accepting that this person, here and now, may never be who you want them to be. It is easier to live in the exhausting cycle of hope and disappointment than to face the finality of that truth. So you stay, not because the relationship is fulfilling, but because leaving would mean admitting that all your effort, all your love, all your waiting was for nothing. It would mean confronting the original wound, the one that whispers that you were not enough to inspire change in the first place. But the truth is, you were never supposed to. Your worth was never contingent on your ability to fix another human being. Do you find yourself making excuses for someone long after your own heart has stopped believing them? The fifth relationship is the one where you are the problem to be solved. You find yourself with someone who treats you like a project, a collection of flaws that need to be corrected. They have suggestions for how you should speak, how you should dress, what career you should pursue. They point out your mistakes with the air of a helpful teacher, and you accept their criticism because you believe they see something in you that you cannot see in yourself. You think their constant scrutiny is a form of love, a dedication to helping you become your best self. But over time, you start to feel like you are living under a microscope. Every action feels examined. Every word feels weighed. You begin to second-guess your own instincts, your own desires, your own personality. The person you were before this relationship starts to feel like a distant memory, replaced by a nervous, edited version of yourself, constantly trying to meet a standard that you did not set. This dynamic feels painfully familiar because it is a perfect echo of a childhood where your worth was conditional on your performance. Perhaps you had a parent or caregiver for whom love was synonymous with improvement. Their attention, their approval, was given only when you achieved, when you behaved correctly, when you fit into the mold they had designed for you. You learned that to be loved was to be critiqued, that your natural self, with its messy emotions, its imperfections, its unique quirks, was not quite acceptable. Love was not a warm, accepting presence. It was a reward for good behavior, for getting it right. So now, as an adult, you are drawn to people who recreate that conditional environment. Your unconscious mind mistakes their criticism for care, because that is what care felt like when you were small. You are trying to win, once and for all, the unconditional acceptance you never received, by finally becoming perfect enough to earn it from this new person. The emotional toll of this is a slow erosion of your very identity. You become a stranger in your own skin. The constant feedback, even when it's delivered with a smile, creates a background hum of anxiety. You feel you are never quite enough, that there is always another level to reach, another flaw to fix. You lose the ability to trust your own judgment because you have handed over the authority to define what is good and right to someone else. The relationship, which you thought was about growth, becomes a cage. It is a cage built from the old belief that you are fundamentally flawed and need someone else to sculpt you into a worthwhile person. The loneliness inside this dynamic is profound. You are with someone, yet you feel completely unseen because they are not in love with you. They are in love with their idea of an improved, future version of you. This pattern is a repetition compulsion in its purest form. You are unconsciously seeking out the very criticism that hurt you as a child in a desperate, futile attempt to turn it into acceptance this time. You are trying to change the ending of an old story by replaying it with a new character, but the ending never changes. The criticism never transforms into the pure, effortless acceptance you crave. It only reinforces the core wound that you are not acceptable as you are. So you try harder, you become more pliable, you surrender more of yourself, hoping that this time your perfection will be the key that unlocks the love you need. But the love that requires you to disappear to exist is not love at all. It is a performance, and you are slowly killing the actor to please a critic who will never be satisfied. Do you ever feel that you have to edit your personality to be worthy of someone's love? The sixth relationship is the one that looks perfect from the outside. It's the partnership everyone admires, the friendship that seems unbreakable. You have the right photos, the right stories, the appearance of a deep connection. You play your part flawlessly. You know the lines, the gestures, the expected responses. But when you are alone, in the quiet moments after the performance ends, you feel a hollow space inside your chest. It's the unsettling feeling that you are living a beautiful lie. The relationship is a carefully constructed stage set, and you are terrified that if one prop is moved, the entire illusion will collapse. You don't fight because there is nothing to fight about. You don't complain because what would you even say? Everything is fine. Perfectly, tragically fine. This need for a flawless facade is not a choice you made yesterday. It was born in a home where appearances were everything. Perhaps you grew up in an environment where difficult emotions were a sign of failure, where vulnerability was seen as weakness. You learned that love was not about authenticity, but about maintaining a certain image. Your family might have presented a united, happy front to the world, while inside the walls there was distance, tension, or a quiet despair that no one dared to name. Your role as a child was to be the good one, the one who didn't cause trouble, the one who made the family look whole. Your own messy human feelings, sadness, anger, confusion, were inconvenient truths that had to be hidden away. Love became synonymous with perfection. To be loved was to be flawless. Now, as an adult, you are drawn to relationships that mirror this dynamic. You choose partners or friends who value stability and image over raw, messy reality. Or you become the one who demands that perfection, unable to tolerate any sign of conflict or flaw in the other person because it threatens your own carefully controlled world. Your unconscious mind is trying to recreate the only version of safety it has ever known, a safety based on control, not connection. You believe deep down that if you can just keep everything looking perfect, you can avoid the chaos you fear is lurking underneath. But in doing so, you have built a beautiful prison. You are so busy managing the image of the relationship that you have forgotten how to actually be in it. The emotional consequence of this is a profound and lonely disconnect. You feel like a ghost in your own life, going through the motions of intimacy without ever truly touching another soul. The pressure to maintain the facade is exhausting. It requires constant vigilance, a relentless editing of your own thoughts and feelings. You may even start to doubt your own reality, wondering why you feel so empty when everything looks so right. The relationship becomes a silent agreement to never truly see each other, because to see each other would be to acknowledge the imperfections, the needs, the humanity that you have both agreed to ignore. You are not in love with a person, you are in love with the idea of what the relationship should look like. And in that gap between the idea and the reality, your true self slowly disappears. This pattern is a defense against the terror of being truly known. Your unconscious is convinced that if anyone were to see the real you, with your fears, your insecurities, your imperfections, they would turn away. So you preempt the rejection by never showing it. You offer only the polished, acceptable version, and you attract people who are willing to accept that bargain. But this is the oldest wound of all. The belief that your authentic self is unlovable. You are repeating the childhood trauma of having to earn love through performance, and no amount of external validation can ever fill the void left by the parts of you that you had to hide away to survive. When you look at your most important relationship, are you in love with the person, or are you in love with the story it tells about you? The seventh relationship is the one that feels like a rescue mission. You are drawn to people who are broken, who are in crisis, who seem to need saving. Their chaos becomes your purpose. You are the steady hand in their storm, the voice of reason in their confusion, the one who stays when everyone else leaves. You organize their life, you soothe their pain, you absorb their turmoil. And in the beginning, it feels noble. It feels like love. You tell yourself that this is what it means to be a good person, to be loyal, to be strong for someone who cannot be strong for themselves. But over time, the weight of their world becomes your world. Your own dreams, your own quiet moments, your own peace begin to fade into the background, replaced by the relentless demands of their need. You stop asking yourself what you want, because the question seems selfish when compared to their obvious suffering. You become a caretaker, a therapist, a guardian, but you slowly cease to be a person with a life of your own. This is not a random role you have chosen. It is a role you were assigned long ago, in the earliest chapters of your story. Perhaps you had a parent who was fragile, ill, depressed, or addicted. As a child, you learned that love was not a safe harbor, but a constant emergency. Your own childhood was cut short by the responsibility of managing an adult's emotional state. You learned to read the signs of an impending meltdown, to tiptoe around volatile moods, to become small and quiet so you wouldn't trigger another crisis. Your value was not in being a child, but in being a tiny, reliable adult. Your love was measured by your usefulness in a situation that was never yours to control. You learned a terrible foundational lesson, that to be loved is to be needed, and to be needed is to carry someone else's pain. Now, as an adult, your unconscious mind seeks out this familiar terrain. You are not drawn to the person, but to their brokenness. Their need feels like home. It confirms the old story that you are valuable only as a rescuer, that your purpose is to heal wounds that are not your own. You mistake intensity for intimacy and exhaustion for dedication. You believe that if you can just save this one, you will finally undo the helplessness you felt as a child, watching a parent you could not fix. You are trying to rewrite the past by succeeding in the present. But the truth is, you cannot save anyone. And in the desperate attempt to do so, you are losing yourself. The cost of this rescue mission is the slow dissolution of your own identity. Your life becomes a satellite orbiting their crisis. Your energy, your time, your emotional resources are perpetually drained. You may feel a secret pride in your own resilience, in your ability to endure, but underneath that pride is a deep and unacknowledged resentment. You resent them for their need, and you resent yourself for your inability to walk away. The relationship becomes a prison of your own compassion. You are trapped by your own goodness, by the fear that if you stop saving them, you will be revealed as the selfish, worthless person you secretly believe you are. So you stay, not because the relationship brings you joy, but because leaving would feel like a betrayal of the only identity you know, the one who stays, the one who bears the weight, the one who saves. This pattern is a profound misunderstanding of love. Love is not a transaction where you trade your sanity for someone else's stability. It is not a test of endurance. Your unconscious is trapped in a loop trying to earn love by repeating a childhood trauma where love was conditional on your self-sacrifice. But you are not a child anymore, and this is not your parent. The person you were trying to save is not a project to complete. They are a human being who must, eventually, save themselves. And you, in the meantime, have a life to live. A life that is being quietly consumed by a ghost from your past. Do you ever feel that your value in a relationship is tied entirely to how much you can suffer for someone else? If you saw yourself in any of these 7 relationships, it is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you are human, and that your unconscious mind has been trying to protect you by leading you back to familiar pain, in the hope that this time you can finally make it right. The key you have been holding is the quiet, brave willingness to see the pattern, to recognize the old story playing out in your present life. That recognition is the beginning of freedom. It is the first gentle step toward choosing a different script, one not written in childhood, but written by the person you are now, the person who is slowly waking up. If this video made you feel understood or made you think, please like it and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. Thank you for listening.